Hello. You may be watching this out of spite, or as a joke to find out what this even is. Maybe your friend dropped it in the group chat, or told you about it, or more nefariously, sent it to you in a DM. I'm not here to judge your preferences when it comes to how we determine space on a map. I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. You're fundamentally wrong. Okay, maybe not wrong, perhaps misguided. Allow me to be your mystical, wizened, hunched-over guide into the light of a better world. I will tempt you with the hope and promise of adventure, but you will nonetheless feel the anxiety and fear of change. Yes, that's it. You're doing it. You can see it. The truth! Hexes. Yeah, it's just hexes. I think squares are dumb and I like hexes more, but I actually prefer a third and far more sinister thing. But let's talk about hexes over squares. When I'm running a TTRPG that uses a map to define space, I prefer using hexes over squares. Most of you smarty pants math nerds are gonna know why, but allow me to explain for those who aren't necessarily geometrically inclined. See, when you have a square map, primarily in use for D&D, you can, by the rules, move in any which direction in 30-foot increments. Typically. And this is great. Squares are easy to read, easy to count, easy to map, and overall everyone knows what a square is. It's you, boom, roasted. The problem is when you do this. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's not how that works. First off, you might not even have like a big enough space to play. Consistently having a good setup for board games or TTRPGs is not an easy thing. Which is why I think the tabletop table is pretty dang cool. Seamless ad insertion. Why cram onto a tiny table when you can save counter space and keep everything organized with the tabletop table? Bring it over to your friend's house.
Jacob, I really don't have time for this.
Tabletop table! Play any kind of game on it.
Oh boy, I can't wait to play this simple game with barely any pieces.
Tabletop table! It comes with this slick carrying case, so you can pack the whole thing up for your next game night.
Get out, please, someone!
Jacob, you can't keep getting away with this.
I could bring any board game and set it up anywhere!
The counter, the couch, the floor, the bed.
Jacob, you have to stop with the board games. You can't just set up games when no one wants to play.
But the tabletop table is a solid wood portable table that makes setting up any kind of game quick and easy, and it also extends the gameplay area.
Yeah, but...
And you can back it on Kickstarter. They have 2 versions.
I know, but...
The quality is insane. It has magnets on the sides.
Jacob, this is an intervention.
Dude, are you kidding me?
What is this, a
Wow, I can game anywhere, anytime with the tabletop table. Check the link down below and back on Kickstarter to get your very own tabletop table. Okay. Where were we? Right. If I can move 30 feet on my turn, which is about 3.4 miles an hour, then when my character moves 30 feet diagonally, I'm actually speeding up to 5.4 miles an hour. Which gets even more egregious if you dash and go 60 feet, which is about 6.8 miles an hour. But diagonally, you're traveling about 85 feet, which is 9.6 miles per hour, only diagonally. Faerun is filled with treadmills that only go in each intercardinal direction. You know, Pathfinder actually fixes that. So yeah, who cares about a 2 mile per hour difference for most turns? People don't even move at consistent speeds anyways, especially during a stressful combat encounter. This is a game, and most of the rules are simply a representation of taking a heroic action, as per the DM's guide on making a peasant bucket cannon. And then your counter argument is like, yeah, realistically, you're not doing everything the same all the time in these 6-second intervals. This is a game with magic and fantasy and dragons and all that. But it is a game based in reality. In D&D and in most other TTRPGs, our characters and the characters within the world experience gravity, the passage of time. They need to eat, and they can die. They experience the world in a similar way that we do. That's what makes these games so fun. You can cast spells to defy gravity. You can bend time to your will. You can play like a robot or an undead guy that doesn't need to eat. Or you could have the power to bring others back to life. I don't like realism in games because I'm a big stickler for the rules of the universe, and a fun session to me would be managing my inventory and how many rations I was supposed to eat today. No, I like realism because when my character does something heroic or extraordinary, It feels extraordinary. I feel useful. I feel like I've used some cool mystical power in order to overcome something that I couldn't do in the real world. It's grounded and it's rewarding and it's so much fun. In our last Dungeon Delve episode, I love how relieved everyone was when Dieter was able to cast Create Water. Now they don't have to worry about water because Dieter made the character choice to be able to cast that spell. Otherwise, Create Water is pretty much useless, save for putting out fires. Another time this happened was when Pepper casted Comprehend Languages. I feel like a lot of game masters don't want to inconvenience their players because they want them to read the cool hieroglyphs that have secret lore about the big dungeon that they made. So yeah, there's a check involved to try to decipher them, but getting to automatically exceed because Pepper casted Comprehend Languages and made the choice to take that spell makes them feel useful. This is fun. This is why I love quote unquote realism. These are representations of heroic actions. I think this branches to everything that a character can do. This comes to mind specifically for monks and rangers, the 2014 versions of them. Rangers are effectively useless if you, first of all, run a campaign where you're not going to do a lot of traveling, but also if you don't make traveling something that's difficult to do, which may be more on the point of enforcing rules, but I feel like a lot of that mentality from GMs kind of stems from a place of realism within the cultural zeitgeist. Like that's the buzzword that everybody knows, is that, oh, this DM really cares about realism. We have to manage our rations and our inventory, and we have to find water, and traveling is difficult and we could become exhausted. I don't do that because I love backpacking. No, I just like when somebody takes a spell or has an ability that can overcome that stuff, they feel awesome. That's the whole point. And I feel the same about movement. Arguably one of the most important things in any TTRPG combat is positioning. Do an experiment for me. The next time you run or play in a game, find the player or the character that is moving the most or has a bunch of movement speed. I often find a correlation to combat efficiency to those players and characters. Being able to position yourself really well, either behind cover or to constantly move your position to keep the monster moving and guessing where you are, so that you can lead them into positions with your other allies where they can use less movement, is really powerful in combat. That's why having a flying speed is really good to have in TTRPGs. But really, Jacob, you are making this entire argument over, like, what, 1 or 2 squares of additional movement? Who cares? I don't care. I'll just let my players just take the extra step. I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. That's fine, but yes, I am making the argument. Because unless your combats are only ever 1 round, focusing on the math of a single player's turn is not the average experience. You need to take into account a couple of turns. And if all creatures can move a little faster when they're moving diagonally compared to forwards and sideways on every turn over the course of a number of rounds, it's a lot more than a couple of squares or a 2 mile per hour boost. Especially when you think about area of effects and ranges. If you play with squares and you're not doing the Pathfinder method of doubling every other diagonal, which can get pretty confusing, then your archer's ranges are in squares. They can shoot further by aiming towards corners. Same with spellcasters. If you have an enemy that's trying to escape, it doesn't actually matter how far they are from the other mini, just line up the corners. I'm the same distance here and here and here. Area of effect spells are also squares. Fireball is a 20-foot radius. Most players are going to try to get the most bang for their buck by getting as many creatures as they can that are within 20 feet. And if you're using squares, that means your fireball is a square. And look, it's not necessarily a bad thing, just a weird one. I find that combat can be a lot more fun and dynamic when you have to apply a little strategy to it. If a mini is physically and realistically out of range of something, that should be a viable strategy to use. It also allows for characters who have really good movement speeds, like monks, to be able to benefit from closing distance. Which is why I prefer to use hexes! No! Hexes? Not only are hexes the perfect shape that appear in everything in the universe, from beehives to the molecular structure of elements and your eyeballs that allow you to see, it's the most efficient and perfect shape. They also measure space and distance perfectly. No more math, no more square fireballs. Things can be round and the distances are fixed. There is nothing that is more perfect. Well, there is one thing. Okay, the problems. They decided that D&D would use squares. That's pretty much it. Miniatures have round bases, so they're a little bit more difficult to fit into a hex grid, especially large miniatures because, you know, they kind of cut into the other hexes. But it's not impossible. I do it all the time. You just kind of pick 3 and then move in the direction, and so it's like 5, 10, 15, 20. There. And then for even larger minis, you do actually have like a circle and you just point out the center hex. And then for even larger minis, it's the exact same thing. Also, most of the pre-written adventures or maps that you can find online, like on somebody's Patreon or from a map builder, use f***ing squares! Some people are nice and let you have a no-grid version, but not WotC. Make something convenient for our audience. No! And even if you do get like a no-grid version, you have to manually go in and add the hex grid. Again, not impossible, just a little annoying. You're trading a slight annoyance for perfect measurement and distances. So it's up to you on what's more worth it. I guess you can make the same argument for squares. It's slightly more convenient for slightly less accurate measurements and distances, whatever. But that's where I activate my trap card, and I bring to you the most perfect, accurate measuring tool for TTRPGs. Used since the dawn of time. Nothing except measuring tape! Every inch is a square! You can move in literally any direction. Warhammer knows what they're doing. You can even calculate flying without having to do the Pythagorean theorem. You can even have squares on your map, and you can simply tell your players, ignore that. And the benefit is they can still use the squares just for like a quick measurement of a couple of squares. So long as they don't do it diagonally. And also look how quick and easy it is to just measure your movement with this. Don't have to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and be like, okay, can I move there? Yes. Most virtual tabletops have a setting where you can just measure like this. It's really fun and super easy to do in Roll20. I'm running Icewind Dale, Ram the Frost Maiden for some friends online, and I just go in there and go to the grid, and I'm just like, no grid, and it works. It works. It's really funny because Roll20 actually has to, when you're playing D&D, add in a rule that makes the ruler count wrong for diagonals. And if you're playing in person, you can use awesome terrain that doesn't necessarily have a grid on it. You're free to do whatever you want. You can stand wherever you want. You can go wherever you want. You can do anything. Fireballs are circles. For real though, this is my favorite way to do combat. We've been doing it for the majority of our Descent campaign, and it's worked really well. The biggest inconvenience is calculating like curves and circles. Radiuses are actually fine. It's not too hard to just be like 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, it's 4. And then everything within 4 inches of this is getting hit. So like you just kind of measure to each nearby mini and see if it's still there. But if you want to move in like a curve, like you kind of want to like go around like this, that's when it becomes a little bit more hard because you basically have to measure in like chunks to be like, okay, 15 and then 15 and then 50, kind of like that. So obviously to solve this problem, string. You could use string and just mark it and lay it across the battlefield, but I haven't actually made it because it didn't come up that much. It was maybe like once or twice. I was like, oh, that is a downside to this. Really though, this is all pedantic. I care a lot about it because I love my tactical, realistic TTRPG combat, blah. But I am one game master and you are another. You don't have to agree with me. I just wanted to at least show you your options instead of bowing down to the whim of the oppressive square grid dogma. Okay, thanks for watching this video. Bye.